Yesterday morning I chatted with you as to the attainment, how to get there. Of course, there are many facets, many aspects. You understand that. I had mentioned to you a right attitude. There are smart Alexes. Now, they're not likely to be here in a morning group like this. There probably would be some in the evening. I mean, that would be true anywhere, that are just snobbish. Well, as I told you yesterday, the Lord deliberately withholds certain truths from some people, gave you the scripture for it. I had mentioned also for the second time with you, and I do it for the third time, Psalm 25:14, the secret, or as I told you yesterday from the French, the intimate communion of the Lord is with them that fear Him. Now what you can do here in your own pursuit, since we don't have time, of course, take your concordance, if you have any, and look up passages on the fear of God and study the fear of God and see how that applies to us. And then consider that the intimate communion of the Lord is with them that fear Him. Now then, in 2 Chronicles 30:22, we have an area that I want to touch on very briefly. This has to do with the teaching of the Word of God. Now we read that Hezekiah stayed comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of the Lord. So then, there is such a thing as receiving teaching. I am in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 22. So there is a place for teaching the good knowledge of the Lord. We need right, good, sound teaching. And here is a reference that I want to leave with you from Job 33. This is one of those things the Lord had given me in that hotel room that I've already talked to you about. Job 33:23. If there be a messenger with him, an interpreter, one among 1,000. Now, this would apply perhaps more to the ministry, although all of us have a place in some kind of ministry. But notice the sentiment expressed. Interpreters of God, one among 1,000. The idea being that God has interpreters, men and women of God, qualified by God to interpret God into the lives, the circumstances of the people. One among 1,000. There are many preachers. You can get them in the Woolworth's bargain basement almost, but having eloquent preachers and having skilled interpreters of God are two vastly different things. There is a great need for us to pray that God will raise up interpreters, men and women qualified by God to interpret God, to make people understand God, and to relate God and His Word to their personal problems, so they know how to walk with God in peace while they are in a world of confusion. Here, now I said that to emphasize the need of the Word of God coming to us. Now we can study the Word, but whatever channel God uses, we do need to be rooted and grounded in the Word of God. Now last night I closed with a rather, I think you would agree, unusual experience. And I told you last night that tonight I would give you the scriptural basis. I am personally very strong on having a scriptural foundation in the Word of God for our experiences. Otherwise, things are too unstable, too risky. Now, notice something in Daniel 5, which to me, since that hotel visit, has been a great jewel of truth. The Lord hath brought that to me, and I'll share it with you this morning. For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and showing of hard sentences, and now note, and the solving of doubts were found in the same Daniel. I'll put it this way, this is not overstated. Among other things, Daniel had a ministry of the solving of doubts. Now this is in Daniel written in Aramaic, a literal translation from the Aramaic reads that Daniel had the solving of knots, K-N-O-T-S. Now, you might not appreciate this as I do, but to me, here I have one of the jewels of truth that are most precious to me for years. Well, the Lord gave it to me, and He did it for a purpose. I might or might not mention the purpose. Well, let me put it this way. Once upon a time, our girl Norma was a little girl. She put on just a little tinker, tight, whatever. She wanted to put on her shoes. Mother wanted to help her, just a little thing. No, Mommy, I can do it myself. And she did it all right. She made 2 hard knots. And when she wanted the shoes off, she couldn't get them open. I remember her saying, Mommy, will you unknot my knot? Catch? Will you unknot my knot? All right. I never forgot that. There are so many people with knots in their lives. K-N-O-T-S. Knots. Lives that are knotted. Lives that are so knotted that the people cannot unknot them. Cannot find a solution to their problem. People sit in the congregation before a preacher or teacher. Some of them have such knotty knots with a cry in their heart, oh God, let the speaker say something that will unknot my knot, that will shed light on my problem, that will help me to see, that will give me the solution. It's not simply preaching oratory now. Oh, no. interpreters of God, those who have learned to know God, at least to a degree, and are able to take God, as it were, and fit him into their secret problem. And even you can receive something like from the Lord, where the Lord uses you in a little area of truth he has made known to you. And you visit somebody, or somebody visits you, and you have a word from the Lord, and they say, oh, now I see. An unnutter of nuts. I heard the French ministers, I told you the other day, in a castle in the Pyrenees Mountains of southern France. There were only 18 ministers there, just from a little region in the Alps. The Pyrenees, rather. And we had this old castle. They were sitting there in the semicircle. I sat at a table like this with them for a week, just 18 minutes. Sometimes they've been up to 3,000, other times you have 12.5. Right. And I was sitting there teaching. I forgot what. In front of me sat a Frenchman. Tears started to trickle down his cheeks. And I wondered in my heart, what am I doing, whether I'm hurting the man or saying the wrong thing, you just don't know. After the service, he came up and said, so you are that American. I wondered what I had done did. And I spoke through the interpreter. And he told me the story. This man had a friend in northern France, also a minister, who 2 years before this visit had a very serious problem. I do not know what it was, had no idea. I visited in France, Rouen, in the north of Paris. And as he told me, this friend of his had such a serious problem. Nobody could help him. He decided he's going to engage in 4 weeks of fasting and prayer, if it took that long, to get an answer from God. A friend of his said, see, there's an American here to speak. Come over and let's see what he's got to say. No, the man said, I have a problem. You know what it is. Nobody has been able to help me. I'm going to go on praying. The man persuaded him to come. And now this man in the south, whose friend he was, and knew the whole story, said to me through the interpreter, so you are that American that helped that brother up in Rouen. I knew nothing about it. Then he told me that this brother had this serious problem, whatever it was, and I knew no more than this mic. And he came to the service and said to this friend that is crying now, just think, God sent an American over here to speak on my problem for 1 hour and a quarter. I have got the answer, and to this day, I couldn't give you the faintest idea what it was. Now, what was it? Well, it was by the aid of the Spirit, unknowingly, interpreting God there to somebody that had a knot nobody could unknot but God. And you don't need to tell me, and I know that much, that there are so many people with such tight knots that they're beside themselves. And God is looking for you and for me, for you to know Him so well that he can give us a word interpreting God on nothing somebody's not. Now here, I'd like to send you to Isaiah, just in reference, Isaiah 54. Oh, I wish I could get into that. You have some of it in my notes on Isaiah there, chapter 50, where the prophet speaks of Jesus as though Jesus was speaking. Look here, I'm just giving you a cue, that's all I can take time with. The Lord hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. And I'll give you now the Revised Version. The Lord God hath given me the tongue of them that are taught, this is Isaiah chapter 50 verse 4, that I should know, now get this, that I should know how to sustain with a word him or her, of course, that is weary. Then the secret, if you read on, he wakeneth morning by morning. He, that is the Father, wakeneth mine ear to hear as the learned. Those of you that took my notes, you have this expounded in the subject on the call of God. The secret of Christ's ministry. Just let me hand it to you. The Father awakened Jesus every morning to give him what he should say, how to say it, to whom to say it, when to say it. Now look, the Lord God hath given me, this is as though Jesus speaking, the prophet quoting Jesus, the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak. God taught Jesus how to speak. A word, that's the substance, that's what to speak. That I should know how to speak a word to him that is weary, to whom to speak. And the Revised, that I should know how to sustain. Oh, what a ministry, folks, is of sustaining somebody with the right word at a time of great need. That I should know how to sustain with a word, not a sermon. People are fed up with sermons. Oh, sermons. We need bread, we need light, we need truth, we need the Lord. To sustain with the word. I was in the hospital 7 years ago, had surgery for cancer. And things were like this. Doctor told Mrs. Beuttler more than he told me. Later he told me I didn't think it'd pull through. Well, I knew the chances were slim. And I was lying there, was I sick. And one of our former graduates from school visited me. He was in the ministry. He sat there and said, well, Brother Beuttler, tell me, what medicine are they giving you? I told him. Oh, he says, you know, I was in the medic corps in the army. I know something about that. Oh, very ominous. Oh. He said, I know somebody else had the same operation. They gave him the same medicine and he died anyway. Actually, it was the Lord later that healed me. I was finished. And I think it took about 2 years or so, or less than that. I forgot. That sounds too long. And I was going downhill steadily. And I left the office in the school and went home. Now, I had a real call to go overseas, you see, I told you that. And I lay on the floor. I would say about 2 hours. Mrs. Beuttler was over at the school in her office doing her work. I said nothing, went home alone. And I lay there on the floor. I knew that this was it. I tried to figure out how I would write my letter of resignation to get a replacement for them. I just couldn't go on. I lay there and I said, Father, isn't it a pity? There's so much to do overseas. I could not tell you how many requests I get for teaching overseas. I had a letter from Ceylon, the earlier part of the year. Please come. You are God's gift to Ceylon. That's how they wrote. I've been there numbers of times. And we demand. And I laid it before the Lord. I said, Father, isn't it a pity? So many opportunities for teaching your word, to teach them that they might know thee. And here I've come to the end of the road. I really looked it, and really was so. Doctor didn't think I'd make it. He told me that after I'd made it. And later before the Lord, I said, Father, I have only one more little trip left. I won't need a passport, won't need a Pan American ticket, won't need a visa. Just a little trip, a few miles up Red Hill or some such place. But I said, don't you think it's a pity? There's so much to do for the kingdom. And I lay still for quite a while, completely reconciled. Now, this is simply it. You know, you get reconciled to things. You make peace with things because you got to. You have no option. Finally, I said, Father, I want to tell you something. If you want me to do some more traveling for you, you simply have to do something for me. If not, I'm finished. I saw nothing, felt nothing, heard nothing, received nothing. I simply realized, casually like, that I appeared to feel all right. I said, Beuttler, you seem to feel all right. Why stay lying on the floor? I got up, went back to the office, had a snap in my step, went back to work. I was leaving for a 40,000-mile round-the-world trip within 4 weeks. And I've been traveling ever since, every year a trip around the world, and sometimes an extra trip besides, ever since. Coming back to this brother, oh brother, somebody else got that medicine and died anyway. Now that was not the word Isaiah talks about. Oh, you know how people talk to him. Oh, hasn't all healed you? Ah, dear. Better examine yourself and see whether there is somebody hanging around in the woodpile. Better look after that skeleton in the closet. Oh, of all the things they can bring up. That I should know how to sustain with the word. Not to condemn with the word, to sustain, uphold, undergird with the word. To unknot somebody's knot. Don't have to go to Bible school, be a preacher. This is open for all of us. The knowledge of God is for all of us. And we can be little ministers in our own church. Going to the hospital, have a word from the Lord. Oh Lord, help us to be unknotters of knots, to help people with their knots, never mind the beautiful sermons. No, they are not usually doing it. It's a word. Interpreters of God, one among 1,000. That's how the word put it. Now we must move on. Psalm 34:8, I want to give you another little truth. There you read, taste and see that the Lord is good. I'm making a statement to you here that I do not make in the evening. This is the only time I'll make it. I kind of like to think folk who come out in the morning, I know others would if they could, but still, that there must be some, really something there for folk to bother come out. It cannot be solely because we get to an air-conditioned room for a few hours and are more comfortable than in our homes. I don't think that would be the guiding motive. Taste and see that the Lord is good. May I say, well, I say it anyhow, that there are some truths we learn only through experience. We can never really know certain truths without prior experience. Now, I know the theologian, he would tear that out, but we let them tear away, I feel. Look here, I think I can give you a valid rationale. Now, I get to the Far East, well, just about every year, and Singapore is about my second home anyway. And when I get there, or any such area, but let's stay in Singapore, one of the first things I like to do is to look for fruit, it's not always in season though, that they call mangosteens. Some of those who are in the service over there might know what I'm talking about. Mangosteens. I do not mean mangoes. I'm speaking of mangosteens. They are, I think, my favorite, it's a Beutlerism, a favorite fruit. Brown like a walnut, about the size. And if they're in the refrigerator, chilled, not ice cold, but chilled, just chilled. On a hot day, and Singapore is always hot, you know, here on. And you're in there with a basket full of those things that big. And break them open. You break the shell open. It's sort of maroon-like, reddish brown. And in there are white slices, segments of snow white meat, like the closest would be a tangerine. And you take them apart like you would the slice of a tangerine, and what a flavor! Can't you taste them? I can. Well, Brother Beuttler, what do they taste like? I can't tell you. Can't you approximate it? Impossible. Oh, how would we know? Oh, you'll have to eat some. In other words, you have to get the experience. Once you eat them, have the experience, you'll say, no, I know, man, what you were talking about. Where is the rest? And the more you get, the more you want. Oh, are they good. Refreshing. I can't tell you. You will never know what they taste like until you eat some. And there is a knowledge, a spiritual knowledge, which cannot be acquired apart from the experience. Taste, partake, participate, and see. Not see and taste, but taste and see. You learn from experience. Some of these things, their deliciousness, the deliciousness of the knowledge of God. There are areas you get only through the experience. Well, where do we get the experience? I can give it to you. But there is somebody who can. And if you pursue in meditation and reading, contemplation, response to the area in the notes on waiting for God and seeking God, there is your way. I'm pointing these things out so you know where to look for things that tie in with this particular subject. Now, we won't get into this at all, but part of this subject has to do with the presence of God, which I touch on tonight a little bit, but do not develop it. For instance, the presence of God is a shelter. The presence of God is bread. Presence of God is a guide. The presence of God is a home. Now this would take an hour by itself, just the home. The presence of God as a home, where we live in the presence of God day after day in the home of the presence of God. Now this feeling, this appreciation of the home of the presence of God comes largely through experience. We have the truth in the Word of the home of the presence of God. But its delightfulness, its restfulness, its pleasure, its tranquility, the tranquility of the experience of the home of the presence of God takes experience to appreciate it. Then we know what it is to dwell in the home of the presence of God, while your husband raises Cain in the house and scares the daylights out of everything. What a shelter. Let's see what we'll take next. Where is our time? I'm going to take you to Revelation 3. I'm developing neither of these things for the sake of covering more, in the expectation that I'm dropping enough of a seed so that this word, this seed, will get planted in your heart, and after I'm gone, I'll do some growing and bear some fruit, some real fruit, not artificial fruit, real fruit. Some of you might remember a British teacher by the name of Donald G. Some of you might perchance remember his writings. When he was a boy, he wanted to raise tomatoes, the British say, tomatoes. Now, thou shalt not laugh, or you'll be like a calf. And the vine grew, but the tomatoes didn't. And he was so disappointed, you know, that his mother had pity on him. And one morning, every morning, he walked out to see if tomatoes were on his, I guess you call it a vine, don't you? It's not a tree, is it? A vine is a vine. Okay. Another farmer. And his mother had pity on him, so she decided to buy a nice tomato and tie it on with a string. And little Donald G. went out to see about his tomato and came in rejoicing. Told his mother that he had grown a tomato. And he took her out to look. He took a second look and saw the string. Now, I'm not talking about attached fruit. I'm talking about real fruit. And if you take these things and plant them in your heart, take them before the Lord, water them with the Spirit, with devotion, those things will bear fruit long after I'm gone. So that's what I'm hoping for. Revelation 3:20. I'm taking you here, or trying to, into one of the great secrets and the areas of our perhaps most frequent failings in these matters. By the way, I'm going to take you here into some experience, but only tonight will I give you the biblical basis. So for this morning, if you can, take me for granted. The reason I do it that way, I do not want to duplicate this morning and tonight. Our time doesn't permit such duplication. So tonight, I'll give you the biblical basis for such manifestation. This morning, I merely describe it and show you what is what. So tonight, you'll get the foundation. In Revelation 3, verse 20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Now then, bear in mind, we are dealing here with a truth where perhaps most people's failure occurs. And as we go along, you will see why. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. The Lord took me aside one night with this passage, and while I always had heard it preached on to the sinner, the Lord let me know this has nothing to do with the sinner. This is not for the sinner, except secondarily, primarily for the saint. So the Lord is here really coming for the Christian. He's speaking to Christians. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Now what the Lord is seeking to do here is to visit His people. There are times when the Lord wants to visit you and me. That's one reason why the writer said, David, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that thou visitest him? Now, after I'm done here, we're going to Oakley. And if any of you should happen to be there, over there, I expect to speak once on the Lord's night visit. He is a great visitor, especially by night. The Lord's night visit. What He does, why He does it, how we are to respond when He visits us by night. I cannot tell you when I'll be speaking, and I'm sure it's coming up in some meeting. Possibly 2 messages on it. But anyhow, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He wants to do something for us. Now then, when we go visiting somewhere, normally speaking, let's say we knock at the door. Of course, nowadays we have the bell. We have one at home. We have a gong. Somebody comes to the door, pushes the button, and off it goes. Gong, 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 gong. You know right away somebody is at the door, wants to come in. But here it's used knocking. There is such a thing, folks, as the Lord announcing His presence. There's so much here I'm frustrated just with how far I should go. I'll give you a little. There are times when the Lord knocks. And, oh dear, I'm frustrated because there's so much I'm wasting time. May I just say to you, I'll bring it to you from personal experience. It'll be best, simplest. Quite some years ago now, the Lord had given me such a hunger, I told you that. And I'd be up by night to wait on Him, sit in His presence, sheer faith or otherwise. And after a while, the Lord began to call me. I told you that, a touch of a hand, singing, what have you. But this is what began to happen. Sound asleep, next to my ear, a knocking just as clear as could be. I have gone to the door already to see who stood there, but it wasn't close to me. And after a while, I discovered that there are times when the Lord actually knocks. Tonight, I'll give the scriptural basis clearly. And I discovered, here we are. Many times, I'd hear the sound of the knocking, the sound of the telephone ringing where nobody was there. Have heard him walk past my bed, saw him disappear at the foot of the bed. But what wakened me was the rustling of the sound of his garments, like the rustling of the leaves of a tree in the wind. It's same as knocking. I stand at the door and knock. Now that can be abused, and I'm not asking you, I wouldn't, to say, oh Lord, knock for me. Please don't do that. Don't ask the Lord for any specific experience. Don't do it. By no means ask the Lord to duplicate something for you that He has done for me, although He has done it in some people's lives. But you must not ask for it. If you have a desire for these things, for the Lord to make Himself known, and I'll speak about that tonight, you simply ask the Lord, Lord, oh, I'm hungry. Do a new thing for me. Somehow, Lord, I want more of you. I want more from you. I want to know you more. Don't say, Lord, walk past my bed or do this or do that. Leave that to Him. God deals differently with different people. Now the principles will be the same. In my case, and I know in many others, people tell me, that thing developed to such a fine point where I could tell from the manner of his knocking what he came for. He has come already like this. Louder than that. This doesn't make a loud sound. Louder than that. I knew what it meant. Get up, quick, hurry up. He knocked one time at least that I recall now. So softly. So tenderly. I could tell from the way he knocked softly, tenderly, I could tell he came as a lover just to spend a little time in fellowship. That's all. It often reminded me of a nurse in the hospital. Earlier, I had surgery quite some years ago. And I was in a semi-doze around midnight, but I heard somebody tiptoe into my room and whisper, "Reverend, are you awake?" So, well, I heard it. I said, "Yes, I'm awake." It was the nurse. She said, "May I come in and talk to you?" "Sure, you may come in." But she came so softly. Apparently, if I was asleep, she didn't want to wake me. But if I wasn't quite asleep, she wanted to talk. And I said, "Well, come on in. You want to talk?" "Yes, sit down." "No," she said, "we're not allowed to sit on the patient's bed. I just stand there." I said, "Okay, what do you want?" She said, "Reverend, what do you have that I need and haven't got?" Then we had a conversation. But I never forgot that soft, barely audible tiptoe. And that night the Lord came, shall I say, tiptoe? So tenderly, I can't describe it. You'd have to experience it. Oh, it's remarkable. At times, from the way he comes, I can tell what he wants. Not always. There have been, you see, I teach these things in many countries. And people have said to me, "Brother Beuttler, now I know. Well, what do you know? I had that and had such a presence after it. I was awakened, but I figured, what was that knock? It must be my imagination. But now I know." "Well, what do you know?" "Now I know. It was the Lord." I'll say, "It sounds like it." The next time it happens again, you just get up. Say, "Lord, I'm here." I mentioned in one place how the Lord once in all my lifetime called me by my name, Walter. He did that only once. Had wished for it for many years, but he never did it. He never asked for it. Didn't blame him. And I related that one place, and an old lady came up after she was all giggled up. "Brother Beuttler, now I know. What do you know?" "The Lord called me by my name. I didn't know it was the Lord. When you mentioned him, I realized it was the Lord." Well, I said, next time he does it, you know who it is. "Oh, yes, praise the Lord. See what I mean? You know, in this type of teaching, one often brings, by the help of God, confirmation for experiences people have already had, but heard no teaching, have no scripture, and wonder, am I cuckoo? Was that thing real? I told Sister so-and-so about it. She said, "You better be careful, you're going off the deep end." And so they reject it. And finally they get some teaching and find the thing in the book. Now I see there is such a thing, and now they're being stabilized in the Word. And instead of throwing their experiences away and agree with the critics and the records and what have you, now they say, "You can say what you like, but I know there is such a thing. Here it is, look at that. I found my experience in the book." Sometimes the Lord helps me to put a little foundation, a scriptural foundation under people's experience, so they cannot be shaken from it by people who don't know anything about the Lord and are not interested in having anybody else know very much either. So, behold, I stand at the door and knock. In one word, this phrase simply means attention. Attention. Now, the Lord knocks in other ways. Please do not take advantage of this now and say, no. I think I heard it. Oh, no. Don't strain for anything like it. Seek him, if perchance he does it that way, you'll recognize. If not, don't worry about it. I think the Lord has reasons why he works with some people one way, with other people another way. I think our type of personality is a factor in that, but that's another area. I'll give you another way. Supposing you wash dishes, and as you wash dishes, or clothes, or what have you, you feel a sudden, and I'll leave the sudden out. It might or might not be sudden. You feel a drawing stealing over you, a drawing to pray. An inner something you know you ought to stop washing dishes and give yourself to prayer. That's his knocking too. Conviction can be his knocking. A song can be his knocking. He's done that with me many times, using a chorus to let me know to be now on the alert. I was going to West Africa one year on a Pan American overnight flight to Dakar. That's a non-stop flight. And the flight was only partially filled. I was sitting over here by a window, and a lady was sitting on the opposite side by her window. And I was sitting there and got a chorus in my spirit, and it sang away. The Lord uses this often. Now let me get the chorus. Very faintly, when he calls me, I will answer. You know the chorus, don't you? When he calls me, I will answer. That sang over and over and over. At first, I paid no attention. Then I realized, oh, that's his knocking. As though saying, now, Beuttler, I'll be around soon, so be ready. Then it subsided. There was no more. But I had been notified of an impending visit, and I knew it. So I was sitting there, we were waiting for supper. This lady over there motioned over to me, and obviously it was an invitation to have dinner with her. You know, the hours are long and people like to, you know. I'm not a socializer by nature, and I might have gone over. I got the signal all right, but before I responded, I just evaluated a bit, so the innocently, and I thought, Beuttler, you had this chorus just a little while ago. When he calls me, I will answer. And if you go over there, have supper with the girl, you're going to be socially engaged. You know what I mean. And I thought, if the Lord calls on you now that you have been notified, it would be very difficult to say, well, lady, I'm sorry, I have to go over there and have my prayers. I mean, that'd be awkward. Though I didn't react, she got the signal, so she got somebody else for supper. They were there all evening. That could have been me. I had started my evening meal when the presence came, and I got a spirit of prayer and intercession. Finished my meal quickly, just sat there like this in the corner as though I had a little after-supper doze, but I was busily engaged in communion with the King. Often the Lord has given me that chorus. When he calls me, I will answer. For me, it's the notification. Now, don't get absorbed, don't get involved, preoccupied. Occupied, yes, but not preoccupied. So when you're alerted and that presence very faintly steals over you, you are ready. And I spent hours on a plane, I told you that. Let's say from Honolulu to Sydney, Australia. Quite a distance. Or New York to Honolulu. 10.5-hour non-stop flight. Or New York, Buenos Aires, 9.5 hours non-stop flight. Spent hours sometimes in intercession, in prayer, in fellowship. And on many an occasion there was notification beforehand. When he calls me, I will answer. I was on a night flight from somewhere to somewhere. And you know, you get tired sitting around there. But I had the chorus, when he calls me, I will answer. So I knew the Lord had put me on notice. Well, you get tired sitting around. I like to walk up and down the galley there and landed back at the kitchen with the hostess. Like to talk a bit. Where are you going and where have you been, you know, and what hotel do the Pan Americans put you up or whatever it is, and you get to talking. But I had notification. And we were back there talking. We were talking, how do you like Hong Kong? And ever been over in Macau? That kind of stuff. Very faintly. Very faintly. But I was alerted. I was alerted in my seat already, but I didn't know when it would come. Very faintly, I noticed a presence in my spirit. Very slowly it began to intensify. And I said to the girl, well, I guess I better go back to my seat. Went back to my seat, sat there, here it was. When he calls me, I will answer. Folks, this is the life of Riley. Only Riley doesn't know anything about his life. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man, get this, I won't take time with it. Any man, that means any person. If any person, in one word, this is opportunity. The opportunity is given to all. The opportunity is given to you this morning by the very fact that you are here and hear this word. God also speaks by his word. His word is his knocking also. If any man hear my voice. In one word, this is recognition or identification. If any man hear, I'll break it up for you. If any man hear, some people do not hear. They hear words, but do not hear with their heart. Here you have something in first book of Kings, chapter 3. God came to Solomon in a dream by night. Think of it, folks. Incidentally, he did that with me once. Only he didn't make me an offer. He gave me a warning. God came to me one night, sat next to me just like a tender but serious father, sat to my right. I recognized him as my heavenly Father, yet I couldn't tell you what his face looked like, but I recognized him. Can't explain it. He put his left arm around my shoulder like that. He looked me in the eyes, I looked into his. Yet I couldn't tell you what he looked like, but I looked into his eyes. He had his hand over here his shoulder, in a dream by night. And all he said is this: and I went, I knew. Well, what was that? That's my secret. I don't tell everything. I knew. And I can rightfully say that the Lord appeared to me. What would you say if God said to you, ask what I shall give thee? Oh Lord, just wait a minute, I'll have to write up a shopping list. I want a new Rolls Royce. Oh, there are so many things I don't know where to begin. Just take it easy tonight. Oh no. First of all, the fact that God said to Solomon, ask what I shall give thee, is eloquent testimony to the fact that God could trust Solomon to ask for nothing which would be incompatible with Solomon's love for God, or which would displease him in any way. God would not dare to say to most Christians, ask what I shall give thee. God couldn't afford to do that. For the outlandish things they would ask. I know one lady who told me God is going to give her another husband. They had 6 lovely boys. Yes, the Lord's going to give her another husband. And she got rid of him and got another husband, but I'm not from the Lord. And Solomon said, give thou thy servant an understanding heart. I'm sharing with you a jewel of truth, very briefly. This is the only time I mention this. In the Hebrew it reads, give thou thy servant a hearing heart. Also translated, give thou thy servant a heart that hearkeneth. Can you beat that? God saying, ask what I shall give thee. And all he asked was for a hearing heart. That was a spiritual man. He had a true sense of true values according to God's standard of reference and priorities. As far as I'm concerned, Solomon could have asked for nothing greater in the Old Testament. He asked for the bestest thing. Salvation wasn't provided. The Holy Ghost wasn't given. So the next best thing was the ability to hear from God. And if a person knows what it is to hear from God, what more can they ask? What greater thing can they ask after they're saved and baptized with the Spirit? That's a prayer for you and me. I prayed it many times. Many times before I've gone to bed, Father, give thou thy servant a hearing heart. And what I mean is, as I go to sleep, or try to, not the best sleeper in the world, help me to hear you if you call. Help me not to miss you if you want something. One morning, very early, I was awakened with the presence of the Lord, but there was something terrifying about it. Ooh, there was something troubled about His presence. I recognized it was the presence of the Lord that awakened me. I could not explain what word would I want? The awesome aspect of it. It's just not a good word, but I can't think of a better word. And I sat up, folded upright in bed, wondering what could this awful something mean, this disturbed presence. I said, Father, is anything wrong? In front of me stood the word this big, Baghdad. And I knew. I was going to the Far East. I was routing through Baghdad. I wanted to stop in Baghdad, go down to the ancient city of Babylon, the city of Ur of the Chaldees. It's still there, but in ruins, hardly anything left. I wanted to visit the Tower of Babel, some of which is still there. I knew that. It would take me only about 2.5 hours by train from Baghdad down to the junction where the train stops at the ruins of the city of Ur, Abraham's city. I wanted to make a visit there. And the Lord vetoed it. Baghdad is wrong. So I cut Baghdad out. I do not know to this day why God was so disturbed about my making a stop at Baghdad. It could be that could have risked my life because they are disturbed areas. I do not know. But oh, give thou thy servant a hearing ear. Help me not to miss you if you call, or if you softly walk up to my bed and your presence brings about my awakening. Help me not to miss you. If any man hear my voice, identification, recognition. So often people don't know it's the Lord. And this is a case of recognizing the Lord. Now I cannot take time with the recognition of the voice of the Lord. But there, Gospel of John, chapter 10, should help you where he speaks about his sheep being able to differentiate between the voice of the true shepherd and the false one. Hear my voice and open the door. That is response. Here is where we fail. What does it mean by opening the door? Responding. You're washing the dishes, as I said, and you get the presents, and what do? Oh, yes, Lord, you want me to pray, don't you? I'll tell you something. If I stop right now, my suds will go unsudsed, and my water will get cold. I'll hurry up and finish the dishes, and as soon as I get done, I'll be there to pray, or I'll go to the hospital, visit that sister, and by the time you're ready, the thing has left, and you get nowhere. The Lord took me through a real series of experiences here, training, I should call it, when he would call at the oddest times. Now he doesn't do that much, but he knows I would respond. Here is where we fail. And open the door. I'll give you one case, and I think I'll just have to stop. For you, and especially for me. I had promised my girls years ago, and they were small, a fishing trip on a Saturday out on Long Island. And because I'm always out ministering, and so it was very, very seldom that I would be home on weekends. Well, I had a weekend free, made it free, and all right, girls, we're going to go fishing. We were out on the island. And we were getting ready. Suddenly, I get a present just before we left for fishing. I knew what the Lord meant. I just knew it. You learn these things. It meant you go upstairs to the attic. I want to talk to you. I just knew it. So I said, girls, we'll have to wait a few moments. Jesus wants to talk to Daddy. It was all right. So I went upstairs. I said, Father, here I am. What do you want? No answer. I said, Father, we're going fishing. And the fish aren't running all the time. We have to tie it in with a tide, you know. I said, Lord, a little, late, what is it? Not a word. Little Norma called up, Daddy, when are you coming? Said, right away, just a moment. Said, Father, would you please hurry? What do you want? No answer. I came down, went up again. Got nothing. Yet I knew the Lord had called me upstairs. Well, make a long story short, we went anyhow. I said to Mrs. Beuttler, I think maybe I was mistaken. I wanted to be mistaken. So we went fishing, or went. I drove slower and slower, and she said, why you drive so slowly? I said, because the Lord wants me back in Grandma's attic. Well, why don't you turn around? Well, so I told the girls, I never, as long as I live, forget the look of our little girl, Norma. That disappointment in that look, she said no word, not a word. I could never forget. We turned around. I said, girls, I'll go upstairs, and just a few moments we'll leave again. I said, Father, I'm wearing out. I can hardly finish this, but I will. I've obeyed you. I've even turned around. What do you want? Not a word. Came down, told Mrs. Beuttler my predicament. She said, maybe you're not supposed to go fishing. Well, I knew that by that time, but didn't want to admit it. So she said, supposing I take the girls swimming and you stay home. Okay. I went up, and she was down getting ready to leave. While they were still there, I said, Father, if you will hurry up and speak quick, I can still go fishing. He wouldn't say boo. Not a sound. I heard to leave with the old car, the old shift. I could hear them turn around the corner and go down the road. I said, Father, do you hear that? Now I cannot go fishing even if I want to. And the Lord spoke. The words, desire spiritual gifts. Now I desire fish. He said, desire spiritual gifts. I knew instinctively what he wanted. He wanted me to write an article for the Pentecostal Evangel on desiring spiritual gifts. And I sat down and I began to write. The Lord poured that thing in. It came so fast like on an assembly line belt. I could hardly get the words down fast enough. No punctuation. Just put the words down. Spelling? Never mind. I just wrote it down. These words kept coming and coming, and I wrote. They came. I wrote. Right all the way through, and there it was, and the belt stopped, and the thing was done. I had to finish it up, correct the spelling, correct the grammar, put in punctuation. Evangel published it, Pentecostal Evangel. Received a letter from the West Coast. Dear Brother Beuttler, you'll never know what your article has meant to our church. Words to that effect. We've had so much trouble here in this area When your article came, we read it to the church, and it solved our problems. Thank God for what you wrote. Now the point is this. I had in mind a fishing trip. I didn't want to disappoint my girls. But behold, I stand at the door and knock. I want you upstairs. If any man hear my voice and open the door and respond, here is where we fail. The Lord knocks, He speaks, He convicts, He draws, He calls us through a desire, and we have more important things to do. And there is where, failing to open the door, we miss the feast that would follow. And the Lord really can call you at an odd time. Purposely. Because He wants to know, lovest thou me more than this? Are you more interested in my visit than in this thing? And the Lord put me to a real test with that. Have you ever seen on TV the sinking of is it the Titanic? Yes, the Titanic. Ever seen it? Well, there are two versions. One I like, the other I care for. The one I like the ending. When the Titanic stands at an angle, already going down. And here are about, I would say, dozen and a half or so people in a group on the sinking, slanting deck. And that ship slowly goes down with those people standing there in a circle singing, nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to... And dear God, am I wicked? I just like that version, where they're going on to singing nearer my God today. And I cry when I see it. Makes me happy that I'm saved. And I waited for that picture again for years. Sister-in-law calls up, Walter, the Titanic is on. God. Here comes the Titanic, and that's it, that's the version. And here comes a presence. Unwelcome visitor. Have you ever watched a TV show and somebody came to visit you and you wish they had come some other time? That's, because this picture is more, oh, did I have a struggle? I wanted to see that picture, so I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll watch and pray. I'll watch with one eye, I'll pray with the other. And I took in that picture. I just love that picture, period. I like sea disasters and things like that, disastrous person. And I had such a conflict. Finally, I said, Beuttler, haven't you learned yet? And I took Beuttler by the neck and shut the thing off and let him miss. Nearer, my God, to thee. And traded that in for really nearer, my God, to thee. Here is where it fell. And open the door. I will come into him and sup with him and he with me. Now, I have given you only some fragments of this and kept you later than is good for you or for me. But I hope you got a few things, at least a direction in which we need to move into this area of the true knowledge of God. I've had it, sister. Would you come up here and rescue me?